Yo, I'm coming from that 3-6, so that's why I got them brains spinning. Ain't nobody using blinkers, we ain't good at lane switching. Better get a plane ticket, I ain't flying all you chickens though. Always shoot my shot, better switching off the pick and roll, dishing off the give and go. All my squad is driven, so you can catch us on the road. Promise we ain't doing shows, so that means...
Rip City, are you listening? I'm Christian Gamalin, I'm talking with co-host Austin Caphammer, and this is the Peeps and Plaid podcast. The All-Star break has come and gone. The Blazers are 26-34, still 9th place in the West, and are just 1-3 since the All-Star break, with Damian Lillard on the bench, still recovering from his groin injury since before the All-Star break. The Blazers are now all tied up with the New Orleans Pelicans, 3 games behind the Memphis Grizzlies, and the Pelicans look to be more of a significant threat to the Blazers for that 8th seed than the Grizzlies do, because, for one, Jaren Jackson is out for multiple weeks for the Grizzlies. Meanwhile, the Pelicans have one of, if not the easiest schedules in the league the rest of the season, with Zion playing extremely well as a rookie, and the team seeming to fire on all cylinders. Speaking of which, the first game since the All-Star break, the Blazers lost to the Pelicans, losing both the season series and the playoff tiebreaker. So it's going to be an uphill battle, but the Blazers have a favorable 7-game stretch ahead of them right now. Damian Lillard should be coming back in the very near future, and hopefully in the not-too-distant future, Nurk and Collins could come back too. So we'll see how things go, how things shake out. But Austin, how are you feeling about this recent stretch of games?
Not so good, and it's primarily because I think Yusef's timetable, I believe, I think Jason Quick finally pinned him down in an interview here recently, and it said that his timetable is as open-ended as ever. So,
Lame.
that's pretty concerning, because I'm starting to watch and notice. Oh, hold on one second here. We're gonna keep recording. This is my lovely girlfriend. If you guys haven't met her, this is Lindsey Williams.
What's up, Lindsey?
She's running away at the moment. So, anyways, yeah, I would say it's probably not so much like the teams play with what they have in their tools, but more so the tools that will be available for them in the immediate future. And now everything's immediate, right? So, Dame's out longer than I thought he would be. I thought CJ was going to be going down as well with an injury when I tweeted CJ oh no or something on our account last night, but I think he just kind of got hit pretty hard in his manhood.
Yet again, another Blazer getting hit in nards.
So, I'm not feeling too good. I would say that I think tomorrow's game is against Atlanta.
Yeah.
So I think that's good, but I'm trying to think of some of our other matchups. I know those other 2 teams. I tweeted briefly. I think Memphis played the Lakers and lost the night that I had tweeted, and then I think that the Pelicans had to play the Lakers twice this week. So their second one is either coming tonight, or is it tonight? When is that?
I'm not certain.
Yes. So Pelicans are playing the Cavs right now. I'm sorry, but tomorrow, which will be Sunday, which will be March 1st at 6 p.m. They play the Lakers again. So I think all 3 teams are kind of. I think the Pelicans are. You want my honest, non-homer opinion? I think the Pelicans are going to take the 8th seed. The Blazers. I don't think the Blazers are going to get it, and I don't think that the Grizzlies are going to hold on to it.
Yeah.
I think that the Pelicans have a harder schedule, but injuries trump scheduling.
Yeah, and we can talk about must win this, must win that, all that. But these next 7 games for the Blazers, they literally should go 7-0, especially if Damian Lillard comes back. 2 games against the Suns, those are probably going to be the hardest ones. But other than that, it's pretty cake. It's Atlanta next, which obviously Trae Young has been just a monster the last few months.
Yeah.
Then against Orlando, you should beat Orlando. I'm sorry. I mean, especially if Dame's back. If Dame's not back, sure, maybe I'll give you a pass. But, this is the run for the playoffs right here. Then against Washington, then against Phoenix, Sacramento on a back-to-back, and then against Phoenix at home in Portland, and then against Memphis. So 6 games, and then against Memphis. So we should be looking back and saying, all right, 6-game win streak, playing against the Grizzlies to finally overtake that 8th spot. That should be what we're looking back on. And then the question is, do we have enough momentum to keep it up so that the Pelicans can't pass us? Because there's going to be some harder teams coming up later than that, but it's still a pretty easy schedule for the Blazers. But the Blazers find ways to lose to anyone sometimes.
It's not enough with this Biggie Swanigan, Anfernee Simons, Biggie Swanigan, and Wenyen Gabriel are not going to get us in the playoffs this year.
But Hazonia will.
That's not even funny. That's not even funny. I'm so angry. Dude, every time I watch him get in the game, I'm like, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm biased, right? And then I see something, I'm like, nope. like there's when I had tweeted and everyone, I kind of hated on him and got I think 11 or 12 likes, whoop-de-doo on Twitter, but it was right after a play where the ball was out of bounds. And I don't even know if it was Blazers' last touch. And he just did this real awkward 1 foot on the line, lean out of bound like a flamingo, oh man, he just keeps shooting himself in the foot. Worse and worse every time.
Yeah, when Hazonia gets the ball on a fast break, he can kind of do okay sometimes. He can sometimes get a good pass, sometimes drive well enough to score. But for the most part, it turns into a turnover. And
he doesn't look like he belongs in an NBA court. And I'm not even saying,
no way.
I'm not saying that as a lot of times in sports, especially in amateur commenting, it's really easy to just be hyperbolic and just exaggerate just because it's sexy. But I am being dead serious when I say that Mario Hazonia doesn't belong on an NBA court right now in his career.
Yeah, because you get it to him in the front court, and he's maybe passed it twice in the last 10 games. He gets it in the half court, and he's like, all right, I guess I have to shoot now. And then he just finds a way to shoot and miss every time. It's ridiculous. It
seriously looks like how I feel like sometimes when it's some of my worst nights playing pickup.
Yeah, it's like me every time I play pickup. Yeah.
It's he gets the ball and you're like, it's gone. Okay, anyways, we can talk about that all night. What's next on our agenda?
What is next for us? Well, just going back through those games real quick. So Pelicans game, that was rough. Another loss to the Pelicans after losing to them right before the All-Star break. After that was the Pistons, which the Blazers absolutely destroyed in the first quarter. It was amazing. And then they're like, oh, by the way, we'll have our second worst quarter of the season in the second quarter, and the Pistons made it a close game the rest of the way. Blazers luckily were able to put it away. It was funny. I went to that game with Whitty from Blazer Tag, who's come on the pod, had a blast at that game with him. And he, after that lead, he's like, man, this is not the game I was expecting to see. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, well, Hazonia hasn't gone in yet, so anything can happen. And then it happened. Luckily, the Blazers won anyway. Then against the Celtics, Blazers held their own well enough, but the Celtics just had too many pieces. Kemba Walker was out, so it's maybe the Dame out, Kemba Walker out thing.
We'll and Jason Tatum had mid-30s with only 1 or 2 free throws.
Jason Tatum's on another level.
And it was 70% or something, or 60% or something on the night.
I saw a stat where since his beard connected, he's just been ridiculous.
I saw that. I don't want to talk about that.
I'm just jealous because
speaking of that stat though, the person who had retweeted it to put it on my timeline was Team Mom, and Team Mom, my girlfriend Lindsey Williams that had just walked in, and myself are going to be going to the Blazers game when they play the Suns down here on the 6th.
Yeah, dude, it's so cool.
So we'll be hanging out with the ladies, and I'll be this will be very interesting for me. It'll be me and then 9 other women that I'm watching a basketball game with, which is cool. But
you're telling me that's not how you normally watch basketball?
It'll be the only time I've ever been the only guy going to watch a basketball game. But it should be a good time. That's and Lindsey was saying, "Oh, I'm nervous. Something." I said, these people want to just have fun and. Tara, you're awesome if you're listening to this, and we're really excited to go.
Totally, man. I was really hoping I could go down, but it just didn't work out with stuff I got going on. So next year, I'll make it down to Phoenix, hit up, get some really good seats. So the other games, yeah, we talked about the Celtics. Jason Tatum is just ridiculous. The Pacers, Victor Oladipo was like not on a minutes restriction, but then he didn't start, and then he was like on an exercise bike, and then he came out. So maybe it was just like his muscles were tight or something. I don't know what's up. But yeah, it was another close game, another good game. CJ's been playing well throughout this stretch. He had a, what was it, 40-point near triple-double. He had double-digit assists for at least the first 2 games of the stretch. He's been just leading the team well, scoring and getting assists, which is, if you watched him the first, before the All-Star break, he wasn't passing all that often. So it's pretty cool to see him able to get those assists. But this Pacers game, another close game. At the end, it came down to it. The Blazers were coming back. It got down to 3. It was like, oh man, Blazers were only down 3. And then Miles Turner hit a clutch 3-pointer, and it was rough. And I tweeted something, which I think I'm going to tweet before every Blazers game because it's just true. And it's a GIF of Michael Scott saying, I'm ready to be hurt again. And that's me watching the Blazers. Because it's like, I know they're gonna like disappoint me somehow because it's
the frustrating part is it's been games, and this is how I wonder if this is just how it feels to be a fan watching your team, or if this is truly how it feels to be a Blazers fan. Because what I feel like is every single game, if not more, 2 out of 3 games that I watch that are a Portland Trail Blazers game, is either won or lost by a quarter.
Yeah, totally. That's like there's, I mean, every once in a while you'll have a blowout. Like I was at Blazers 76ers sometime last season, and Blazers were up by like 40 or something at the half, and it's like, okay, they're not going to lose this. But for the most part, it's like there's a lot of people I know that aren't NBA fans. They'll be like, nothing even matters for the first 3 quarters, and then the fourth quarter matters. It's like, yeah, it's pretty true. I mean, you set yourself up one way or the other in order to have that finish, which kind of segues us well into what I'm hoping to get into next. Did you have another thought on that? Okay. So the All-Star break was cool. The dunk contest, Aaron Gordon was apparently gypped again, had like multiple 50-point dunks, more than the winner, Derrick Jones Jr. But, Derrick Jones had some pretty good ones, but there's kind of the argument that he's similar to Donovan Mitchell in that, yeah, he's a high flyer. He gets some exciting dunks, but they're kind of all the same.
Not that diverse.
Yeah, whereas Aaron Gordon, comes up with all these crazy ones. Like, obviously, a few years back, like, basically sitting on top of his own mascot while dunking is just insane. So, yeah, I mean, you could definitely argue Aaron Gordon deserved to win that, but Derrick Jones was still exciting. But what I want to talk about, the All-Star game itself, there was a little bit of controversy. They were doing who wins this quarter, who wins that quarter. It's not like a running total, but it really was a running total. And then there's the whole aspect of like maybe disappointment because they were giving 100,000 to these 2 different charities based on who won it. So it's like, what if one team wins all 4 quarters and then there's all these kids who don't get anything? Like what? So it's pretty awkward. Ended up working out okay in that way, and the game was more exciting than expected because they had the Elam ending, which is named after, let's see if I have it ready to go. I don't have it ready to go. I think it's
Elam, you mean?
Elam. E-L-A-M. Named after like Matt Elam, who is a professor at Ball State University. Elam, yes, maybe. Or is that a hockey player? Who knows?
It's getting more obscure by the second.
Elam ending. Anyway, the Elam ending is to have a point target rather than a time target in an NBA game or a basketball game, named after, it doesn't want to say. Anyway, Matt Elam, I don't know, I'll look it up. I'll correct that. So, in the All-Star game, the point target was 24 points for Kobe Bryant in memory of him. So the way it worked is leading teams say they had 90 points, which was not the case in the All-Star game. It's much higher scoring than that. You add 24 points to that, and that's the target that the team needs to hit, okay? So the target would be 114 points. They'll lose. Whoever's behind has to score more than 24 in order to make up that difference. The game ended on a free throw from Anthony Davis, which was a little disappointing, but it was a very exciting end to the game. I mean, both teams were playing hard, playing more defense than you usually see in an all-star game. So the question is that something they want to incorporate into the rest of the NBA? I listened to, I think it was Brian Noe talking to the creator, Elam, and shoot, was it Brian? No, I don't know. And yes, it definitely was. And he was saying that there's some like tournaments for college and for at the high school level, all these things that use the Elam ending in the tournament, where it's at 4 minutes on the game clock. Mm-hmm. They will incorporate the Elam ending, stop the clock, and on average, those teams score 8 points normally, in college.
So it's almost like in soccer when they assess whatever the duration of the extended period should be. It's like you get there and then they reflect on the game and how many points have been scored, and then it's determined how many points should be until the finite ending.
Kind of, except way more exciting because like the point of it is like game-winning shots. I mean, some of them are going to be free throws, but the point is game-winning shots. So it would kind of cheapen game winners because nowadays it's like, oh my gosh, Dame hit a series-winning shot, whereas in the future, every series would have a series-winning shot because it has to end on a field goal, which is pretty dang awesome. But I don't think you should incorporate it in that way. What I think would be great is in regular season overtime. I think playoffs, keep it, have quadruple overtime thrillers. That Blazers-Nuggets game was a classic. But in regular season games, instead of having these double overtime games where Nurkic gets injured against the Nets, and it's like, oh my gosh, why did we have them playing so much? Put an Elam ending on it, okay? You're tied 101-101 at the end of 4 quarters. You're like, all right, the target is 109. First team to 109 wins it. Now, I think a way that could be good is maybe have a soft cap of 109 and a hard cap after that, where it's like, okay, they hit 109 on a free throw. That's less exciting if you really want to do that. Let's put it at, you still have that score, but you don't win until you actually hit a field goal. So you're still ahead by that much, but you don't, the other option would be like win by 2. Win by 2, maybe like altogether, or maybe you put a cap on it. Win by 2 until you hit 15 over, whatever the case is. But I think the Elam ending is really cool. I wouldn't want to see it all the time because, like I said, it kind of cheapens the game-winning shot, the series-winning shot. But it makes every game exciting, where it's like, you actually have to score. You don't just dribble out the clock. You got to earn it, even though maybe you earned it before. But
personally, I think midseason tournaments are stupid. I get the draw. And I think that would be about the only application where an Elam ending would be reasonable. Maybe preseason or G League, I guess, just to sell tickets for G League teams, or in Vegas preseason, I guess, if you don't want to waste viewership time or dollars. But that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I personally just think it would be good to not have such long regular season games when it's not really that necessary. Maybe you even do it after 1 overtime. You're like, you give them 1 chance, and then you're like, all right, we're going to cut it here. This is the Elam ending. But I just think overtime in the regular season, throw in an Elam ending. Make it more exciting. It's already exciting.
You wouldn't be saying that if we had another four overtime game to go into the Western Conference. Not winning the Western. Going to the Western Conference Final.
That's what I mean. I want it in the playoffs, dude. Oh, man. I just keep thinking back to that Nate Robinson triple overtime Bulls Nets 2013. That was amazing. Anyway, what next? We got some tweets from the people. Anything else?
Yeah, we got some tweets from the people.
From the Peeps. Tweets from the Peeps.
So I put out a tweet here earlier today, just asking here for some insight as to what our viewers would like to potentially hear. We'll start chronologically. So we have a Mr. Tommy. Handle is Tom A. Saransky. He asked, what should the Blazers' top 3 draft targets be? Christian, I'm going to defer to you in terms of actual names, but I would tell you what I would perceive as needs.
You are funny because guess how much I know about the
College
NBA
ball.
draft? Yes, I do
Yeah.
not watch college basketball. LaMelo Ball, that's a name I know, and the
Yeah.
center from Memphis that got in trouble because.
Okay, so Tommy, we'll address your question by saying we'll say what we'd like to see in terms of needs. We'll do our best to educate ourselves as we near the off season, and then we'll circle back to you. But in terms of needs, something I've kind of pondered a bit as an NBA fan and as a Blazers fan in general is how you're not really drafting for the next year, nor are you even drafting for the next year or two after that. You're really drafting for your core and extended core about 4 to 5 years out. And at the moment, we have a young core which is inclusive of Zach Collins, one healthy. How old's Yusuf now?
Yusuf is like 26.
Yeah, I wouldn't bank on him being there in 5 years. So I would say, and I wouldn't also either really qualify him as young. But so I would say, Wenyen Gabriel doesn't necessarily count yet. We don't really know where they stand with him. I think Biggie Swanigan is out. I don't even think he'll be in the league in the next 3 years. I think that Anfernee really needs to pick it up. I think it doesn't necessarily make sense for us to trade him at the moment because he's not playing. It would make more sense to do that after a peak, a little bit
Sell
of a
high.
performance.
Boom.
Yeah, exactly, pretty much. So in summary, the young core is Anfernee Simons, Gary Trent Jr., Zach Collins. Who am I missing? I'm missing somebody.
Nasir Little.
Nasir Little, that's right. I think that Nasir Little and Gary Trent Jr. surprisingly are the two most it's so tough, man, with injuries. It's so tough. But I mean, what do you see? What do you see as not now, right? So like Dame and CJ and like Yusuf and all those guys, their skill set is not even a part of this conversation because this conversation is we're drafting for 2 to 4 years from now. So what do you see within that age range on the Blazers team as a need?
So when I look at the Blazers team, I see the young guys are a point guard, a wing in Gary Trent Jr., a wing maybe forward in Nasir Little, and a big man in Zach Collins. So if there's one position I'm going for, it's another forward, potentially a defensive forward with high upside. Okay, so maybe they can contribute immediately. I mean, we're looking at probably 13 to 18 range in the draft. So maybe they can contribute already because, we're getting a good enough player. But regardless, we're not looking for a superstar talent. This is whatever we can get, and I want someone with high upside, ideally a forward. We don't need more guards.
Does that sound familiar though to you there, Christian?
What, Nasir Little?
Someone who is no, because he was already accounted for in the discussion in the names that you had just mentioned. But there was a name that you did not mention within that core.
Wenyen Gabriel. Yeah.
I think the best draft pick the Blazers have this year is developing him.
Yeah. I mean, you could potentially get someone with higher upside. I mean, Gabriel's athletic, and he could put on
He's a
some more
McDonald's
pounds.
All-American MVP.
Yeah, but he wasn't drafted, so he didn't play all that well last year. Already he's contributing a bit. Not the most smooth transition into the NBA, but better than expected, I'd say.
Okay. Well, in the essence of time, we do have 4 other questions here, Christian.
Yeah. And I'll come back with names because I never pay attention, and I always have a pretty good grasp on who the Blazers should draft. I really wanted Nasir Little, and they got him, so I'm stoked. But yeah, I'll try to get some names for you.
Same here, Tommy. We'll try to get some names for you. But it sounds like, and I'm right there with Christian agreeing that a high ceiling forward, defensive-minded forward would definitely be nice to have. Hall of Lame. Definitely, if you guys haven't listened, go ahead and follow our friends Trey Benson and Jason Malia over at the Hall of Lame, TheHallofLame on Twitter. Those guys are really fun, and they talk about really Blazers and anything that's like Northwest sports centric, and then they kind of dive into the national scene as well a little bit. So they had asked what had happened to Anfernee Simons this season. Opportunity has been ample, but he hasn't quite taken another step in his development. Christian?
Yeah, Anfernee's hit some big shots throughout this time, and he's hit some impressive shots too. But similar with a lot of players in the NBA and in basketball, sometimes you make some that you really shouldn't make, and then it like encourages you to keep on taking those. So that's kind of been the case for Anfernee. He'll make some crazy ones where you're like, whoa, he made them, and he's like being told, oh, you're the most talented player that Neil Olshey's ever drafted. Woo! So he's just like feeling the green light in a good way, but
especially when Dame's injured, right?
Yeah, it just hasn't connected quite right, and it's what I basically expected at the start of the season.
Same here. Same here, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've predicted quite a few things pretty well for this season. We're at the start. We're like, hey, it's going to be hard for this team to mesh. It's going to be a tough start to the season, and then guess what? There were injuries, so it became a tough rest of the season too. But Anfernee Simons, we came in like he'll have some highs at the start of the season. He'll have some lows. And as things go, I expect him to lose some playing time toward the end of the season just as we make the push toward the playoffs and then in the playoffs. So it would have taken like him playing extremely well to really open up those minutes. But he's got more minutes than expected because of injuries, and he hasn't really stepped up. But like we said, the guy's 20. The game needs to slow down for him a little bit more before he can really capitalize on his athleticism.
I agree.
So I'd expect within the next couple seasons he becomes a really good player. Probably, I mean, maybe like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, kind of what we're seeing from him. Maybe not that high of a ceiling because, I mean, Gilgeous-Alexander has already had like a 2020 game of some sort. I don't remember. I got to look that up.
Yeah.
But yeah, something like that where it's just, once the game slows down for him a little more, I can see him capitalizing on what skill set he has.
And he's more athletic than Shai.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Anfernee's about as athletic as it gets for a guard, other than like Russell Westbrook.
And he's got that shot. It's just not consistent. So I think he still has even higher upside than SGA. It's just like you said, just a matter of I'd say 2 seasons from now we'll be laughing about this conversation.
We'll see. I mean, I've seen some pretty high ceilings in young players just kind of fizzle out. I mean, you look at Tyreke Evans, who had one of the best rookie seasons we've ever seen, and then like stopped playing point guard and did terrible. So that was strange. But anyway, Anfernee Simons is a good player and hopefully will return to form in the next couple seasons, but I wouldn't expect too much this season.
Okay, all right. And then we have 2 more. We'll make them quick since we're nearing our deadline. The first one comes from Hamza Chima. Hamza, sorry if I pronounced your name there incorrectly. The question is going to be, is Nurkic going to return this season? If not, how is it going to impact him since he wouldn't play an NBA game for about more than a year and a half? What about Collins? Is he going to return this year?
Bro, I hope. I'm wondering the same thing. I mean, at some point, maybe after this 7-game stretch where things look really favorable right now, things don't go well, maybe they pull the plug. They're going to pull the plug on the season at some point unless they keep on trending toward that 8th playoff spot. So it depends on when that is, if that is, and then if they want to push it. Because I think if the Blazers don't make the playoffs, then they're not bringing back Nurkic or Collins whatsoever. So they might bring back Collins. There's been kind of a hard sometime in March timeline, and the season goes till mid-April. So maybe they bring back Collins regardless. But
you want to hear
Nurkic.
Here's the cynic in me. This is what I think is going to happen the rest of the season. I think the Blazers are going to make a push for it. I think Memphis is going to drop it, and I think that the Blazers will ultimately drop it. And I think that New Orleans will make a push, and that's what we're going to see.
Yeah, that's could happen.
And I think that and I'm sorry, what I was gonna say last bit on that is I think as a result of that, we're not gonna see Jusuf Nurkic or Zach Collins this year.
Yeah, and as far as whether or not they will come back, the question it depends on how they're feeling. I expect to see Collins. I think Nurkic, Man, I mean, we got to figure out this Nurkic-Whiteside situation. I'm excited to talk about some free agent stuff at the end of this season that I've been prepping. But yeah, I mean, if we get Nurkic back, that'd be awesome. And I think the Blazers would definitely have a better shot than the Pelicans if they get Nurk and Collins back within the next, at least one of them in the next couple weeks, and then the other within like 3 weeks. I think the Blazers could have a better shot than the Pelicans for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, last one here for you, Christian. We got to keep it concise, and it's kind of a tough one to end on because it is awfully open-ended.
Perfect.
From Randall Pink Floyd, does CJ elevate the players around him like Dame does?
I think the caveat right there is at the end. Like Dame does, not quite. I mean, he's getting assists right now, obviously. But, yeah, I don't think quite to the level that Damian Lillard does. I don't think he leads them nearly as well on or off the court. That's not a slide to CJ. That's just to say Dame is, number 1 or 2 at being a leader in the NBA. So, there's nothing wrong with CJ. He clearly can get assists, we've seen now. But as far as leading the team, I mean, we've seen close games where he has done well at getting them back. That Pacers game, I mean, they got back within 3, and CJ's given it his all. He's playing like entire second halves. But to the level of Damian Lillard, no.
And let me make my 3 points here, Christian. The first is going to be position. The second is going to be who the other players are on the floor when Dame is on the floor.
Yeah.
And the third is going to be position for Dame. So position for CJ is he's a shooting guard. By skills, he's not traditionally a distributor. He's a guard. That doesn't necessarily mean he should be able to distribute at all or elevate games. So that's something to consider. It's definitely not the biggest one. Here's potentially the biggest caveat in this discussion. When Dame is on the floor, CJ is one of those other players. How much do you need to elevate CJ McCollum's game in comparison to Gary Trent Jr.? You don't.
Yeah, no, totally.
You don't. Yeah. And so, or when Hassan Whiteside, when you're, and that's what I'm going to bleed into the next point, which is Dame being a point guard, right? So like Dame's getting all of those motion screens, all those what I believe our friend Tori Jones believes to be very few called plays, but when those set screens come, more often than not, they're set for Dame. So then he gets the opportunity to distribute the ball, and then he gets to look like the good guy with the assist. So yeah. I think that, and this is coming from somebody who would be relatively open to trading CJ McCollum this offseason, and relatively.
We'll talk.
Yeah, well, exactly. But I'm just saying, I think pump the brakes. I think as a fan base, we need to pump the brakes a little bit with the CJ not distributing. That's just who he is. That's who he is as a ball player. That's who he is positionally. I think that's who he is in terms of how he fits alongside Damian Lillard. And I think that CJ McCollum needs to play for the Charlotte Hornets and drop 35 every night.
See, okay, like that's the thing right there is CJ McCollum, you're saying that's not who he is, and I understand that. What I see it as is that's not his role. Like, CJ is a more than capable guard altogether. If CJ is on the Suns instead of Ricky Rubio, CJ's getting 7+ assists every night. He's good. He can play point guard well enough. The game, like I said, has slowed down enough for CJ in ways that it hasn't for Anfernee Simons just yet. Mm-hmm. So, honestly, if you asked me probably 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't be saying the same thing because I haven't seen a lot of passing. I've been seeing a lot of ISO from, Dame, CJ, and Carmelo Anthony, which has been frustrating to me. But he's shown that he can totally set up his teteammates. He can definitely get those assists.
He can right now, but we need him to be able to perform like that to a greater degree when those guys are all on the floor.
And but I mean that's what I mean is the role we have him in is shooting guard. His role is you get the ball, you score. That's what you're best at.
You're saying he needs to be operating as a 6-man?
No.
Okay.
I mean he does. It would be nice if he could get assists as well as he is right now when he leads the second unit when Dame normally goes to the bench after 8-9 minutes in the first quarter. That would be nice if he could lead the second unit a little more like he is right now with the first unit. But he's a good enough point guard in the league. Like he could start at point guard on basically any other team except for this one because Damian Lillard is just that good. And like we said, he elevates the players a little more than CJ McCollum would just because of how good Dame is. But yeah, CJ is a more than capable point guard, I think. I think that his place as a shooting guard is strictly based on his position in this team, not based on his own skill set. I think he. Do
you think that position sits well though with what the Blazers need?
No, I mean I've said for years that Dame and CJ is not the ideal scenario. It's great, we saw in the Nuggets series, Dame was, whether it was because he was being doubled or just tired or whatever the case was, Dame struggled in that series and CJ stepped up and he's the main reason that they made it to the Western Conference Finals rather than just the second round. But you don't get that without Dame. Obviously, there's a give and take to it. But CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard work together, but it's not a perfect fit. Okay, Dame and Anthony Davis is obviously. When was the last time you saw?
When was the last time that you saw a back? I mean, this is gonna be the last question because we got to wrap up, and this is a big one too. When was the last time you saw a backcourt heavy superstar tandem win a championship?
I mean, Steph and Clay, but Clay is a.
That was in 20. You're saying before KD?
Yeah.
Because after that, it's KD. KD brought them those other champions. I mean, don't get me wrong, those other guys, but KD really.
But if you don't have KD, you still have Harrison Barnes and whoever else they can get. So maybe it's. I'm not saying.
I'll give him credit for that first year.
Yeah, I'm not calling him elite. I'm just saying like they gave up pieces to get Kevin Durant.
And Clay, in my mind, he played the two offensively and where he was at, but Clay brings a certain physicality and height and measurables that are common in a three too.
And that's what I'm saying. Clay is more of a wing, a swing man rather than a guard, whereas Dame and CJ are both guards.
Yeah, traditional.
Neither of them is playing the three except in a small ball lineup where you feel like it.
Yeah.
But Clay it's very clearly not a guard. I mean, the other good one is like John Wall and Bradley Beal. Those are two guards.
But what have they done in their entire careers in Washington? So I think that's just something that just doesn't necessarily work out system-wise right now in the NBA.
I totally agree. Dame and Paul George, Dame and Jimmy Butler, Dame and Anthony Davis are all better options. But yeah.
And I think we'll find that. I think we'll even find out whether or not you can have just two wings, flat out two wings with the Clippers this year and next year. And I guess technically Braun and AD are wings, but I think that's kind of a little bit of I think that's like an anomaly, right? Like both of those guys are almost positionless, right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, LeBron is straight up positionless, and Anthony Davis is a big man, but he's got all the skills in the world. So,
I don't know. Yeah. All right. Well, Christian, was there anything else you wanted to discuss here with our viewers this evening?
Oh, I think we're good.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Go ahead and give us a follow at Peeps and Plaid on Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcast, all that jazz. Thank you to our contributors for the music, Anthony Machoni, as well as others. Definitely, if you have any artwork, we'll probably be doing a revamp of some of our graphics as well going into this next season. So go ahead and reach out, everybody. And thank you so much for listening, and go Rip City.